What's up, guys? Been a little bit since I've made another part to the Cafe Racer build. Had a little bit going on, but right now I've just got some new clutch plates because the last ride I had, those plates were slipping a lot in there, and I'm sure they've been in there quite a while. So I got a new clutch kit. This was about a $40 clutch kit. It's probably not the most top of the line, but it is a decent clutch kit. It has the aluminum in the discs and stuff to reduce the heat and wear and that kind of thing. So right now I'm just gonna have them soaking in the oil all day today, and I'll probably put them in tomorrow and see how it goes and see if there's a big difference or not. I'm not changing the springs or anything, so the springs will be the same as long as they're still fine in there and there's plenty of tension left on them. I guess I can go ahead and when I take them out, I'll check them with the micrometer and see if they're still good. So I don't know quite where I left off, so I'll kind of just go over some stuff. The new forks are on. Well, not new, the originals that I had on here originally. I took off the L forks, rebuilt these forks, and put a video up on the rebuild, so if anybody's watching this and has these type of forks, you'll kind of know it's a pretty simple task. Right now I've got the headlight off. I'm going to try to do a lot of wiring cleanup. My next thing to order, I'm going to order another key switch, like a small, short, waterproof one that I can kind of put in the side there and get rid of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and mount these gauges a little bit closer to the stem, to the neck here, and mount in the two holes that the key switch goes in. Other than that, let's see, what else has been going on? Not really a whole lot. Just pretty much got the new gauges in and got them wired up. Pretty simple. Pretty much for the speedo cable, it just runs down there to a magnet. And the kit I got for this 81 Suzuki was a 99 to whatever, like an 02 SV650 kit. And the bolt fits right in my hub and works perfectly. Then you can just look online and find out your dimensions, the diameter of your tire in millimeters. You can just pretty much convert the 190 19 or whatever it is size of your tire and find out that, and that'll give you your speedometer reading up here accurately. As far as the tack wire, I did hook it up the way the book said, but I think there's something a little bit different on here. It's been hooked up straight to the coil, wired right in, I think, to the number 1 on this side, and it's not giving me an accurate reading. I mean, this thing will top out at 10,000 plus RPM, and it's only got me showing max RPM on here of 5,000. I think it could have something to do with this inline resistor, because I think this resistor is what's needed actually for the SV650, since this is a 650 kit. So I may end up trying to take that out and run it without that resistor and see if that's the problem. The wiring here is kind of a little bit all over the place. I've got a lot of extra. I just wanted to make sure that everything's where I want it before I start cutting it all. But a lot of that's going to get cleaned up, and I got a lot of shrink tubing to put around it. As far as the fork rebuild, that was pretty simple. Like I said, there's a video on that if anybody's really interested. Pretty much I just rebuilt them, put about 11.5, maybe a little bit more than that in each side. You got to make sure they're even, and it's very, very hard to do that. It says not to use a compressor because you're gonna, if you go over 32 or 35 psi, you're gonna blow out your fork seals. So pretty much I just bought this little cheap $10–15 bicycle hand pump, and of course it's not very accurate on its gauging, so you're gonna have to have a lot better digital tire gauge. This is just one from Napa, but it actually does like 12.2 psi, 12.5, that kind of thing, the smaller numbers. So that's what you're really going to need to do that properly. Other than that, you're just kind of guessing at it if you're using one of those gauges that got the big gaps in it. So, let's see, I've got the Vortex Clip-Ons on. I don't think those are in my last videos. These are quite expensive clip-ons, but I really didn't want to have to wait for some cheap ones from China and then the chance of not being happy with them. So I went ahead and spent a little more, well, not a little more, probably more than double, and bought these Vortex Clip-Ons. The only thing I didn't like about them, the bar ends I had, like these are 7/8 inch bars, and everything fit on them, but the inside diameter is different. And my bar ends that I had don't fit in the end. So it come with a couple of them, like it come with a flat set like this, and it come with a rounded one. So I went ahead and just put the flat ones in, and I'm fine with that. It's not going to provide much protection if the bike does get laid over. So I may try to see about on my bar ends maybe rounding it off a little bit more so it'll fit in there, because it's not a whole lot off. It's probably like a couple 1/16 of an inch off, or maybe like 4 millimeters or so, and then they'll be fitting. My last ride, I had my start switch give out on me, and we went on it was probably about 45 miles or so where we drove, and as soon as we got there and parked, I came back out, and my little button had popped out and the piece was missing to actually get it to start, so we had to bump start it the rest of the day, which is fairly simple with this bike after my buddy showed me. And this thing, you wouldn't believe it, but a 4-cylinder bike you would think would be super hard to bump start, but it's not. But pretty much I had this extra switch because as you guys know, I've got just tons and tons of parts laying around for this bike, and I went ahead and put this switch on there. It works perfect, nothing wrong with it, so that looks good. And it's actually better than the other one, because you can actually read all this stuff on here. The other one you couldn't even read it, so kind of like this one, how you can't read nothing. But my original plan was to replace those completely. I just hadn't got around to it yet. I've got a whole nother set of switches in here. Like, this is my turn switch for the other side. It's a real nice switch, nothing wrong with it. And this is my start stop switch for that side, and pretty much well, I guess it moves this. Well, no, there's the start switch, so it'll all be on the right side. But pretty much that's what I want wired up. These were on it originally, but I didn't put them back on because I didn't know the exact wiring of this. So I may look that up eventually and put those on there. Got the fork gators on. Like I said I was gonna. They look real nice. Didn't really have a problem with them. I mean, they pretty much fit right on there. This bottom diameter here is a I don't know why this having such a problem focusing. This bottom diameter was just a little bit different. I mean, it's not much. It just doesn't fit perfectly tight on there, so of course you got to use the zip ties, which most of the people do anyway. I mean, it's just gonna keep dust out of there and everything in case they do pop off. But yeah, these forks were completely just useless the way they were. One of them had so much air in it that it was pretty much just non-existent suspension. It would pretty much, when I sat on the bike with the forks on it before, it would completely compress this almost down to about here, and you had that much travel, you know, for suspension, which was nothing. So they've been rebuilt now, and they're a lot better. So other than that, I've had a few problems with since I've switched this triple tree up here. Like I said, the other one brought these two triple trees away from the neck about an inch farther, maybe a little more, a little less, and that created more space, you know, between this and the tank. Well, it all still fits and everything, but once you put the clip-ons on, you're still bumping into the tank a little bit. So I think when I do, because I'm not completely happy with this paint job, so when I do tear this bike down and repaint it, I'm probably gonna see about maybe putting some dents in there, like a lot of people do when they put clip-ons and different things on there. You can kind of dent the tank, kind of how that's done there. You can kind of put the dents in here to allow the extra space for that, and it's really not a big deal. It just you just got to take your time to make sure you do it right and that kind of thing. So other than that, when I did put these forks back on, I went ahead and was going to bleed the brakes, and I snapped off one of these bleeder valves. Well, we couldn't drill it out, and we couldn't get an easy out to pull it out, and we couldn't even get a nut welded to it to get it out. But luckily, these brackets on these bikes are interchangeable. Like if you switch the forks, you got to switch your brake brackets, because the forks on these are different than the L fork brackets. So we pretty much, my buddy told me that they're interchangeable, so I went ahead and switched it, and it's perfect. So thanks to him for that, because you know, the brakes just were non-existent without bleeding that one side. It was just so much air in that caliper that you just couldn't hit the brake at all. So they're working perfect now. Other than that, really there's not been a whole lot more going on. I don't know if I got this in the last video, but this is the triple tree mount that I shaved, and it looks great. A lot of people fill these holes in, but I'm fine with it. I think it looks kind of cool. And so really the only thing is, once I get the gauge moved up here, this choke lever is going to be a little high, but really I'm not too worried about that. I mean, it looks fine. It really looks a lot bad when you got the key sticking up and everything else. So once this key switch is out of the way and moved down here somewhere, which shouldn't be a big deal, because on the wiring of these down here, there's only 3-4 wires there to move. So I can definitely extend those and not have a problem with that. As you can see, there's a huge mess of wire to be cleaned up down here, and I've got a whole lot of new connectors for it. Just one suggestion: you don't want to go buy all your cheap electrical parts, because they're just going to come right back out. So I went ahead and got a kit of these really good electrical connectors that are the male and female ends, like the ones you'd find on this bike originally, and they're all on here, and these actually fit right into a lot of the old ones. So some of the old grounds that I'm using, I no longer have to splice a wire into them. I can kind of go along and clean all that up and just plug them right in, plug the new connectors into the old ones, and get rid of all that. So that's really one of the main things that I want to do so bad, is just get that wiring cleaned up. But I think I'll wait until I get that key switch, and I'm probably going to go in and order that today. I think it'll be like probably $30-40 for a decent key switch, a waterproof one. I don't know if that one's waterproof. I imagine so, since it's a stock key switch, but I'm thinking it's going to be down on one of these side plates somewhere. I don't know how hard that's going to be to cut that out. A nice round hole. I do have these, but I believe this may be for wood only. I think these are wood. Like, each one of these can come out and you can just use one of the blades in here and fit it to your size. But I think with these small teeth that this is probably for wood, because normally when the teeth are closer together, it's obviously for wood. So I'm going to have to get a metal version of this, the right size for my keyhole, to be able to cut that out perfectly, because I really don't want to take a chance and mess them side plates up to where I can't use them. And probably what will happen is I'll have to have it on the other side, because on this side there's a whole lot of electronics under there, the rectifiers and the some other stuff. Anyway, on this side there's basically nothing back here. Basically behind here you've got your brake caliper reservoir, and pretty much nothing behind here. I mean, I can probably put quite a key switch, like probably put it down here somewhere or back in this area. That way it's out of the way of my feet and everything. So I don't know if I talked about this in my last video. I did have to take off my stabilizer. I mean, I love that stabilizer on here, and I've never had a street bike, so I really didn't know what it was for. I knew it kept your steering stabilized at higher speeds, but really my buddy told me that as long as you're not going down on curves, you know how a lot of people drag their knee, and just turning basically really low and fast, you know, you're not going to need it. And I don't plan on doing none of that. I'm still pretty new to riding, and I really don't think I'll do that on this bike anyway, because it is a pretty heavy bike, and I still plan on getting a street bike here in the next couple weeks. I'm going to get a new some kind of new bike, probably a Suzuki. So just since I'm so familiar with them, and I do love them, and this one's been super reliable. So so I do have the stabilizer, and I'll kind of show you how it was put on. This was put on by the previous owner. He did a really good job of fabbing this up. I mean, it's no professional machine job, but it worked perfectly. It was flawless. So kudos to him for it working, and it never had a problem, and it still works now. So pretty much this end here was hooked up to the neck right there, and this end here was hooked up underneath there where the horn goes, and pretty much it just slides back and forth inside there, and it dampens it pretty much. So I may eventually, just for looks, try to get one, because a lot of people run them down this way, because that was my problem. There's no room once that neck came back an inch in the new triple tree. There was no room at all to put that. And a lot of people put them back here, but I may just do without it, because I really didn't like the look of a huge long stabilizer running through here. It just didn't look very clean. I mean, this bike isn't very clean to begin with, but it's just always been a work in progress since the day it was, you know, made into a cafe type of bike. So I think I've pretty much covered everything else that is new.